Hello and welcome to Adventure Habits with me, David Overton, and our sponsors, Splash Maps. I'm particularly thrilled that in this episode, after having heard of so many people getting lost on mountains and needing to be better at map reading, that this time we've actually got the equipment officer from the UK's Mountain Rescue here, Paul Smith. I'm delighted to have you here. How are you?
Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome.
Full of a cold, but yeah, I'm good.
Well,
my apologies if I start coughing.
I'm great. I'm so pleased that you still went ahead with this because I understand you've had the day out and everything. So it's not an easy one. But Paul, yours, you've done a great thing. You've actually given me your story before actually coming on, which is a first for this podcast. So, I mean, I can kind of ask questions and expect what's coming up, but it also means that I'm doubly thrilled for our listeners because I think they'll be inspired, surprised, and they'll probably pick up on a few of the inspirations that have led you down what I think is a life of volunteering that we should all aspire towards. Do you want to tell us, first of all, what was your first encounter with Mountain Rescue?
First encounter with Mountain Rescue. So I was an air cadet. I want to think it must have been about 1984.
Yeah.
And we were doing our Bronze Duke of Edinburgh's Award expedition over on the Peak District. I remember it being really wet, really horrible, really windy. Now, looking back, very ill prepared.
Yeah.
Didn't have a clothing Cadocagulan and a jumper or something like that. We were walking down from Kinder Scout to head towards Hayfield, I believe. And I just remember these long-haired, bearded group of... I'm not going to say scruffy, but,
Doesn't sound like a description of a group of people I know on the mountains at all.
Yeah, mountain rescuers. They came over the hill, took a look at us, asked who we were, asked what we were doing, and said, "You're coming down with us," basically. And they walked us off the hill down to, I think it was some form of waterworks building from memory.
So this wasn't because they thought that you were lost. This was because they thought that you were unwell, or
Yeah, I think we all looked very pale, very wet, and very cold.
And
they were actually out. Yeah, they were searching for a missing lady, I believe, which is why they were on the hill already. And they came across us, and they must saw the state of us and didn't want to leave us, and took us down the hill into some building, got us all cake from memory and hot chocolate, and warmed us up until our officers were called and came to pick us up.
Wow.
Officers were took off to one side by these mountain rescuers, and there was a little bit of shouting going on.
I can imagine. Yeah, a bit of a bollocking.
It still happens today sometimes. Yeah. I can only imagine that if that happened nowadays, I can imagine they'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. A lot more.
But back then, but back then. So that was my first experience of mountain rescue, and I'd never even heard of mountain rescue before that point, to be honest. I lived in a city just on the north side of Manchester.
Yeah.
Never had any interaction with mountain rescue before. Never even been up on the hills before up until that point. So it was all very new to me.
And then it became like a bit of a thing for you, didn't it? I think you became more regular at going into the hills, testing out kits and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so me and some friends from school in our little group, our posse as we used to call it, we started going out initially around sort of Dovestones, which is like a local reservoir, which is actually where my old team, Oldham, trained quite a lot. And then venturing further onto the hills around Glossop, over Kinder Scout. And we thought we were the best hill walkers on the planet, mountaineers, even though there's no mountains in the Peak District. We'd have our little hexi block cookers, and we couldn't take sandwiches because that was what wimps do.
Yeah.
In our heads, we had to cook our own food and carry everything with us.
So each trek was an adventure, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's all.
To us, it was.
Yeah.
And as time got on, it was like, oh, we don't need all this. We'll just take sandwiches. It's much easier. But yeah, it sort of sparked an interest. And luckily, I never had to use, touch wood, hopefully to this day, we never had to use mountain rescue again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you did have a bigger brush and a near family tragedy with something that happened one day quite a few years later, I guess.
Yeah. So 1990 March time. My younger brother, is 2 years younger than me, Gary. He was a big adventurer. In fact, he come up from Cubs Scouts, Adventure Scouts, and eventually became a Scout leader. But he had gone off up to Ben Nevis on his own, as he normally did. We didn't think nothing of it. And then it was around 11 o'clock at night. I was at my mum's that evening. There was a knock on the door, 2 police officers, and asked if I was Gary. Which I said I wasn't, and they said, "Oh, can we come in?" Mum and Dad came downstairs, and these 2 officers just said, "Is Gary Smith your son?" "Yeah." "He's missing on Ben Nevis," and that's as much as they told us and how they told us.
What an awful thing to happen, well, to you, and I would have thought your parents would be in absolute bits.
Yeah, it was just a shock. And now, with where I am now, with the jobs I've done and the experience I've had, the way we was told wasn't the best way of telling us, I suppose. We later found out that he'd left a route card with the hostel he was staying in, didn't return, and they raised the alarm with the mountain rescue teams. My mum and dad went straight away. I spoke to him in the morning. They said he'd still not been found. So I followed up the next day. And it's actually, I phoned in sick at work, if you can say it. I spoke to my boss.
Yeah.
And said, "Oh, I'm not coming in. I've got to go to Scotland. My brother's missing on a mountain." And then I later found out that Steve, who's a friend now actually as well, he was laughing about it with the other managers, saying, "Oh, you never guess what this one said to get out of coming into work today." And then he saw it on the news that evening, and he said his heart sank and he felt so bad.
Right, I should hope so too. Yeah.
But, and I'll be completely honest, in my head, I had it Gary was missing for 3 days, and then re-looking at it for this interview and just checking everything and checking the dates, he was actually missing for 5 days.
5 days on Ben Nevis.
So yeah, Saturday to Wednesday, I think he was found.
I mean, he wasn't in great condition, as you can imagine. 5 days on Ben Nevis, exposed, winter time as well, right?
Yeah, it was in March. There was snow on the ground.
Yeah.
Apparently, he just hurt his leg, sat down, and couldn't get up.
Right.
From my brother, from speaking to him, he said at one point he could hear dogs, but because of the wind and the snow, they couldn't hear him. On the last morning, they were scaling down the search, and the guy leading the rescue was David Heavy Whaley, who's quite famous in mountain rescue circles, especially north of the border.
I think it was his account that I read online. You pointed my attention.
Yeah, so that's right. Dead Men Don't Wave.
That's it, yeah.
So that's how we know that side of the story. And as we watched, some police officers gave me and my dad some binoculars, and we watched the helicopter winching through the binoculars. So basically, we could see where he was. This is the frustrating thing. He wasn't in a good way when he landed, but he survived. Life-changing for Gary.
And life-changing for you as well. That's. I mean, although that wasn't the thing that put you onto the track of becoming, it put you on the track to becoming a volunteer for mountain rescue. But there was a very personal tragedy that actually was the spark that made you look back on those experiences, I guess. and maybe the equipment stuff as well that moved you in the direction that finds you where you are now. Are you able to talk about that? The tragedy that led to all this.
With Katie, yeah, no, it's absolutely fine.
Sure.
It's good to talk about these things, to be honest with you. So, it's actually September the 11th of all days, 2003. So it's one of them days you can't forget.
Yeah.
I just got a phone call at work saying you need to come to the hospital. My wife was 29 weeks pregnant, and within an hour of me getting to hospital, the baby was in an incubator. It was that quick. She was in some quite distress, we believe. We then transferred to Salford Royal from Oldham, and during the transfer, I saw the nurses pointing to her fingers. Her fingers were all crossed over. I didn't know anything what they were thinking. I think it was the next morning when we were at Salford Hospital. My wife and I stayed there the entire time, and I mean, this shows how long ago it was actually, because the doctor said, we believe your daughter may have something called Edwards syndrome, which is trisomy 18. So the 18th chromosome is faulty in some way, and there's different types of problems that there are with it. And obviously we were like, what's Edwards? What is this? And the doctor said, oh, you just need to Google it. So bearing in mind, this is 22 years ago.
Yeah.
I turned to my wife and said, what's Google?
Yeah.
Didn't have a clue. So we discovered what it was. We discovered that most babies are stillborn, some miscarry, and so it's not a very well-known condition. It's a genetic condition. It's not very well known because the babies don't usually live.
Yeah.
The typical symptoms are fingers can be crossed and toes can be crossed, so they overlap each other.
Yeah.
Ears can be slightly lower than they should be. Tight curly hair, and a cleft palate.
Yeah.
And then internal organ issues. Unfortunately, Katie had all them, and she had a massive hole in her heart. So we were told by the consultant from Alder Hey Hospital that if the test results come back that she's positive for Edwards, we won't operate. So on the 6th day, and the doctors have been working hard, especially on that last night. That the on-call doctor had not slept at all that night.
Yeah.
And the bizarre thing is, she got us up about 6:30, took us down to SCBU, as they call it, and expecting the worst, she said, look, you need to come down. We think this is it, basically. We went downstairs, and all Katie's numbers went perfect for someone in her condition. And the doctor was like, I don't believe this. I should have got you hours ago.
Yeah.
She says, I had been fighting all night to keep this little girl alive. So it was quite bizarre, really, for something like that to happen. Later that day, the consultant took us into a room and said she has Edwards, trisomy 18. She's got a form which is called mosaic. So the 18th chromosome was duplicated. They actually said to us, if you want to take her home so she can die at home, you can do.
So they were fully expecting her to go, I mean,
yeah,
100%.
They gave us options. Yeah. They said, we can continue to fight, but we already know they're not going to operate on a heart. So it is time in hours and not days. Or you can take the choice, if you want to remove life support and then you can have some time with her. So I suppose it's the most difficult decision a person can make in his life, but being the type of person I am, and my wife was, it was also the easiest and right decision to make for us.
Yeah.
Albeit very difficult.
And so you took that decision to have the life support turned off. Right?
We did. And then we called the family. The family all came up, all called up to say goodbye. And yeah, we took her in a quiet room and she passed away in my arms.
And I love the, because you shared this story with me before.
Yeah.
You gave an image that stays in my mind of taking her for a dance and thinking about, the wedding, her wedding day as it would have been. And yeah, it thoroughly moving. And what a huge inflection point in anyone's life. So, I mean, I understand then that put a lot of strain on the marriage, and things weren't looking good there. But you then had this like almost like an epiphany that came some years later or some months later. Can you tell us about that? Your rise out of it, as it were.
So obviously it was a place I never want to be again, of what I went through at that time. And it put a lot of strain on my marriage. And over the next year or so, the marriage fell apart, really. We were both going in different directions. After the marriage, being young bloke, as I still was back then, still had some hair on my head, I ended up drinking every night.
Yeah.
Just enjoying myself, doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And then one day it was, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to live from drink to drink. I want to sort myself out. I started going to the gym, I started running, and that's probably the fittest I've ever been in my life within a year, even from when I was at school.
Yeah.
Although at school we did cross-country running, our fit was on the bus, but that's another story. But yeah, and it was, it's almost as if it was written somewhere, because I got myself to a high level of fitness, and then I was at my mum and dad's house, and my mum said, "Oh, have you seen this? Mountain Rescue Team's looking for volunteers in the paper."
That's great, and it's not that common a thing either, by the sounds of our previous conversations. So it's like various things came in line at the same time.
Yeah, it's as if it's strange. It's as if everything was planned for it to happen. Where I got myself stopped drinking, got myself fit. I was in a good place mentally. I had a good job. Very supportive job, especially over what happened. And then I joined the Mountain Rescue Team, who, I mean, I was just in awe of some of these guys in there, and they're telling us some of the stuff they've done. I was like, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish I'd done this sooner. Yeah, I wish I'd done this sooner. And people, when they say, "Oh, who are your heroes in your life?" and people say, "Oh, it was my dad," or something like that, and I say, "Do you know what? It was some of the guys on the Mountain Rescue Team. It was still on the team.
Yeah.
Some people have left. Some people, unfortunately, have passed away. But it was like being sat in a room full of great people."
And you were saying earlier on, but generally people don't retire themselves from mountain rescue. Pretty much there.
No,
once they're in.
Set that away you want it, but they don't. Not people will leave for a multitude of reasons, whether that be family, work, but you do find a lot of people will stay in mountain rescue until the end of the days.
Yeah,
because it is a family, and I see it as an extended family.
Yeah.
So last year, I moved to Lancashire, changed mountain rescue teams, and we're 20 months into being on a new team, and I already feel like family.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just how it is.
And we're so grateful to have you guys out on the hills, so that numpties like me can actually have a little bit of a fallback plan if the old following the map doesn't work, doesn't go exactly to plan, which has happened to me once or twice, but thankfully haven't had to have anyone called out yet. But yeah, it's an amazing service. entirely voluntary, and you know, people give their lives for that activity, and it's amazing and rewarding. And I hope people listening to this might actually consider themselves and go to their local mountain rescue if they're in a region like that, and volunteer their services. And you became equipment officer, and this is something quite nice, right? That, you know, it almost goes back to your you know, your childhood ventures into the forest and testing one thing against the other and working out which bit of kit worked well there. Well, you're now doing that, but you're doing it with people like Helly Hansen, and you're helping them develop products that work better for you guys. And you've also got this terrific, you know, passion for products that will actually last from a standpoint of sustainability, so that, you know, people aren't just churning their way through plastics and fabrics and, you know, having them chucked away, but they're things that can be repaired, repurposed, reused, and all of that good stuff out on the hills. Can you tell us a couple of things about that before we go on to the adventure habits that we're desperate to hear from?
Yeah. So when I was younger, didn't really think about the environment, if I'm being completely honest. Just, I don't know whether it was something from the 70s and 80s. There wasn't a lot of it around.
Yeah, it's true.
I took the equipment officer's role for England and Wales around 7 years ago, 8 years ago now. And for me, I took the role because I wanted to help team members as a thank you for what they do. And if I could get them discounts with the various suppliers that we use for personal kit and team kit, because we get no government funding, so it's all self-funded for teams. And that was initially my aims and goals, if you like, for being in this equipment officer's role. The role's grown, and a lot more into being, you know, looking after the environment now. So the longevity of clothing, looking after the clothing, being able to repair the clothing, we've put a lot of work into that. We do have a project of zero to landfill by 2030, which we're quietly working along with. So I've managed to, and not just on my own, I've got people who help me within the organisation, so I can't take credit for everything. It's a team effort. But we're working with a company who also work with the RNLI to repair their clothing, Scottish Mountain Gear. We've actually set up so teams can send their equipment, and they can actually strip it down, reproof them, so they come back like a brand new jacket. And I've got some kit that they've done that, and it does come back like a brand new jacket. We've just rolled out a deal, which was probably 3 years in working on, with Grangers, who are supporting mountain rescue with wash and proof stations, which they've donated to all the rescue teams. And you know,
we recommend Grangers for our maps as well, so it does work on all fabrics.
Yeah, and they're a blue sign company, so they're very, very environmentally friendly. They get what we're after, and they've offered this support free of charge, and training videos and everything for team members. I've been lucky enough, and I say, just because I'm called Paul Smith doesn't mean I know anything about designing clothes, like my namesake. But I've actually, I'll say, I designed a jacket with Helly Hansen called the SAR 133.
Well, there we are. So you are that Paul Smith.
Well, maybe. But we did. It was a team effort. And like I said, I'd love to say, yeah, it was all just me, but it wasn't. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
And we managed to raise funds to buy every team member a jacket in England and Wales. So roughly about 2,800 jackets we managed to get the funding to buy.
That's a great thing.
Which has been great.
Yeah.
And then I enjoy the research and development. We've replaced all the full body vacuum mattresses, and that was again, nothing happens quickly. So that was 2.5, 3 year project, testing various vacuum mattresses. And
do you know what? Before this, I never knew that Mountain Rescue had such a big part in innovation, particularly, you know, with your influence down the environmental track as well.
Well, we need to. But yeah, it's just, if we can make everything last longer, it's a win-win, because one, like I said, teams are not government funded. They've got to raise every penny they've got.
Yeah.
And we've got some teams who are quite, they've got money, and we've got other teams who don't have money. And if they can make the kit last an extra 5 years by choosing the right clothing, giving them the tools to look after the clothing, and that includes, even with Grangers, they're making videos for team members. Because I find that you've got various types of team members. You've got ones who think they know what they're doing, looking after clothing. You've got others who are not sure, but a bit scared to ask.
Yeah.
Because they feel they should know. Which, do you know what? I'll put myself in that group before I started on this journey. And then you've got some team members who do know what they're doing. So it's just about helping the teams. And that's... And I get a bit of a kick every time I see the coat designed on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet. Well, look, thanks so much for all that. Such great background. And, we can really see how you got into your role as equipment officer. And actually, I'm learning the role of mountain rescue in making all of our stuff more sustainable. And, thank you very much for that. And of course, mountain rescue teams now can get their splash maps at a discount as well, thanks to our work with you. But okay, so I'm going to take a quick break now. We'll come back in a minute, and then we'll be after your 5 adventure habits. You ready for that, Paul?
Yeah, let's crack on.
Great. Okay, so let's take a break. So when you get a splash map, you'll notice the print on the material is super sharp. That's because when we started this business, we needed this product to be as clear as a paper map, but without any of the disadvantages of folding and getting mushy in water and mud. So this is a tight woven polyester. This is a fabric that won't stretch even when you wash it. And we'd encourage you to put it in the washing machine quite frequently. You get a key to explain exactly what you've got on the map. It's stitched with an overlock all the way around, and that's so that it will never fray around the edges. If you want to increase your adventure habit, head over to our website and set up your personalized map in whatever format you want today. We're back from the break. Okay, Paul, now you've given us some great background, an absolutely fabulous life story of all the things that have led up to you becoming a volunteer, mountain rescue, and now your important role as the equipment officer as well. And I'm just now waiting for your first adventure habit. What adventure habit would you give to our listeners here?
So this is probably mountain rescue volunteer specific, and I would presume there's quite a few do this, but check the weather every morning when I get up. First thing I do is turn my alarm clock off, and then I have a look at the weather.
Yeah,
because we never know what's going to happen next. You can go days and days and days with nothing, then you get a job. So you need to be prepared. So I will, if it's particularly a wet season, which living in Lancashire is most of the year, I'll make sure I've got a lot of waterproofs and stuff like that ready in my rucksack, ready to go. It's just being prepared, really. But yeah, check the weather every morning, because not just for a normal person who's going out walking at the weekend, they probably start looking at the weather Friday, Saturday for a Sunday walk.
Yeah.
For us, it's every day.
So I suppose it's no longer a case that you have to watch Countryfile and get their 5-day forecast. It's on your phone, or is there a special place? What's your go-to weather app? Because everyone's got their favourite, right?
They do. I mean, where I live in Lancashire, it's not particularly a mountainous area, so I'm happy with the Met Office for where I am. But the people who are up in the mountainous areas, then there'll be the various weather apps with that specifically are for mountain areas, which will give them that little bit of extra information that, I mean, we don't tend to need down here in this sort of hilly area of the country, we'll call it.
Yeah. Okay, great. So habit number 1, check the weather. Okay, noted. What's the next one?
Always keep your kit ready. My kit lives in the car. It's always ready to go at a moment's notice. A lot of torches nowadays are rechargeable, so it's once a week I recharge everything.
Yeah.
recharge my radio, goes on a charge on a Monday night. So I'm quite, I have little habits, and know I've got a little bit of ADHD, so I have to have little, everything has to be at a certain time with me. So Monday is charge all my torches, charge my radio, then I know I'm ready to go. I have a bottle of water in my car. I will refresh that so it's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's just making sure everything's ready at a moment's notice. And the other important one is making sure that the chocolate bars and the
Critical.
Kendal mint cake
Yeah.
still in date.
You can push them if you like, friends of ours.
Yeah, well, just to make sure it's still in date, because the oldest one I found was 10 years out of date when I changed the rucksack ones.
Okay, so quick question: what's your view on them being out of date? Do they go? I mean, I've had some that are horrifically old.
Well, these Mars bars were 10 years.
Mars bars probably would.
Yeah, I drew the line. They were at the bottom of my rucksack when I got a new one. I drew the line at that. But if it looks all right, I'm a visual eater, so if it looks okay and there's no green bits on it, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
But it's just a case of having a few snacks in my car that's fresh, because jobs normally come in either just after you put the tea on or just before tea.
Yeah.
So and if it's a job where I'm coming out of work, I won't have had my tea, so it's just so I can get some food inside me before we start tramping up the side of a hillside somewhere.
Yeah. So, right, that was the other habit. Refresh the chocolate, right?
Refresh the chocolate, yes, definitely.
Always keep your kit ready. What's the next habit you've got? Number 3.
So for me, I've always suffered with skill fade, and I'll learn something and then I'll forget about it. So for me, it's repeat. I will practice my navigation, practicing my map reading. Luckily, where I live, I am in the middle of the countryside. So, when it goes dark, I'll get out my map and compass. If it's a really horrible wet night, I'll go out with my map and compass just to practice. And I might only go out for an hour and just pick somewhere I'm not really familiar with.
Yeah.
And sometimes where I am familiar with, it doesn't really matter. But just to keep my map reading skills up to scratch.
Sure.
We have to, we've all got little mini sat navs that we have in our pockets now and things like that. But, batteries do go flat.
Yeah.
And so it's just practice in all weathers.
And it's actually there's a lot of talk about mindfulness at the moment. There's nothing more mindful than keeping your phone switched off and actually using your brain to navigate by. And I mean, what better way to do that than, if you want practice, I guess the best thing to do is have a map made up that takes you from your front door to wherever you're going. And then you're practicing as soon as you step out.
Definitely 100%. I know, and that's where I live. Inside my house, I've got a signal, and then I lose it. This is the worst area on the planet for O2. It is a nightmare at times.
Other services are available.
Other services are available, which might work around here.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I enjoy going fishing, because where I go fishing, my phone don't work.
Yeah.
And it just gives me that time to myself.
Yeah, no one's going to disturb you. So. It's like we're back in the 1970s again, isn't it, Paul?
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Okay, so we've got practice, and I've made a note that that's about map reading in particular, a subject close to all our hearts. And what's the 4th one?
So it's an important one, which should be for everybody, is leave no trace. And that's important for mountain rescue teams. When you're dealing with a casualty, it's so easy to rip things out of wrappers to treat your casualty, especially if it's a traumatic injury, and it can be quite intense.
Sure, your mind can be on anything else, really.
You're looking after the patient, or the casualties, as we call them, and you'll rip things out of a packet. And I'm the world's worst. I've worked in the ambulance service. You just chuck them over to one side. And so it's when we've packaged the casualty and they're off on the way, making sure somebody stays behind with a torch, because it's always dark, and just to make sure we pick everything up. Wrappers and medical devices are not good for the environment, and the last thing we want is an animal of some description or a bird coming along and then trying to eat them.
Yeah.
Or just another member of the public coming along and picking them up, because there could be all sorts of contaminants on there. That's specific to mountain rescue, I would hope.
But again, certainly applies to everybody else, right? Yeah,
of course it does. Yeah, if you're going out, if you're out walking and you've had your butties, pick them up. One of my pet hates on Leave No Traces, food bags tied to fences and trees.
Yeah, I still don't get that. Why are poo bags tied to trees? As a mountain biker, you go quite fast, and then suddenly you have to duck under one of these things that's hanging from a branch.
I put it down personally to laziness.
Yeah,
that's my own personal opinion. Could be wrong, but yes. So to me, that is, I suppose, one of the most important things is take everything home with you.
Yeah,
don't leave anything other than footprints, as they say.
Yes, and gentle ones at that, if you can.
Yes.
Okay, and your final adventure habit.
So it's fitness, physically and mentally. Train. I'm no longer the fittest person on the planet, but I do try and go to the gym 3 times a week. I know that any second the phone alert could go off and I could be tramping up a big hill.
Yeah.
So you, as a mountain rescue, you do need to have a level of fitness.
Sure, there's a lot of kit that you drag along with you as well, isn't there?
Well, there is. I know my rucksack weighs about 11 to 12 kilograms. And a lot of the time you could be carrying oxygen or a first aid kit or Entonox, or so you could double that weight.
Yeah.
Going up. So you owe it to yourself, to your team members, and to the casualty that you have a certain level of fitness.
Yeah.
And again, that could be anybody who goes out walking. If you're not that fit, choose a low-level walk and don't push it and build up to, some of the big walks. Just know your limits. And then mentally, as a mountain rescuer, you do see some quite traumatic events. As I touched on briefly, I have worked in the ambulance service as an EMT. So I've seen lots of traumatic events.
Yeah.
And it's knowing the signs and knowing that you can speak to somebody, not bottle it up and keep it to yourself, as we like to do because we're blokes and we don't like to talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's knowing them signs, and there's lots of support within mountain rescue.
Yeah, it sounds like there should be. We had a very good interview with Steve Dredge from Status Code 14, and I thought his PTSD must come from his military background, but it didn't. It came from when he joined the police, and you don't realise that in these emergency services, your exposure to these things is, it's frequent. So so his didn't come from his military background at all. It came from doing kind of not dissimilar stuff to you.
Yeah, and you get triggers. I mean, last night I was driving up the motorway. There was an accident on the other carriageway, and I saw someone from the fire service doing CPR on somebody, unfortunately, in the middle of the motorway. And that triggered me.
Yeah.
That triggered some memories for me from doing CPR in the ambulance service. So for me, I meditate, probably quite poorly, but it helps me. And I have some apps on my phone to do that. So when I got home last night, it was playing on my mind and I didn't want it to. So I just did an half an hour's meditation session.
That's great advice. Great.
And I was fine. I was okay. It just helps me to get it out of my system. But that's the problem. You never know when them triggers are going to happen.
Well, I mean, what an appropriate way to finish off your 5 adventure habits with that, that mental resilience, which I think is a it's a theme running through your life story, I reckon, Paul. So I'm just going to recap on those. So your adventure habits are, check the weather, always keep your kid ready, so everything's charged up, and you got your waterproofs ready and close at hand. Practice and practice, and that's particularly the case for map reading in particular, and leave no trace. And then finally, it's about fitness, and that's both mental and physical. And it's kind of almost on that theme that I'd love to ask you: is there any group or people or something you want to shout out? We can add the links to the show notes that are on our webpage that go along with this.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to my daughter, on the incubator was a sticker that said Bliss. So, and Bliss, their vision is that, every baby born premature or sick in the UK has the best chance of survival and quality of life. And I have just read that because I would have forgot it. So they kept my baby alive for 6 days with the equipment that they supplied. And that's just to touch on that. When people say about my daughter, we got 6 days we never should have had. And it's thanks to people like Bliss who put the equipment in there and raised the money for them. So also another one, again, going back to when I lost my daughter, it's an organisation called Daddies with Angels.
Daddies with Angels.
Who, yeah, they'll support fathers who've lost a child, which I think is really important. As I briefly touched on earlier with you, that when my daughter died, people were asking how the cat was before asking how I was, and I never even thought about it at the time. But then from speaking with the guys at Daddies with Angels, I realised that it's not uncommon. And they do, they're in North America, they're in the UK, and they're an amazing group of people who just give support to fathers who are struggling. And if I actually had a spare second, I would love to do some more work with them and supporting fathers, but I just don't have the time. Maybe when I retire.
We all need you up those mountains as well, Paul. So
yeah.
that's okay, great. So that's two things. Any other links or shout outs?
Yeah. So an important one if you've seen the news lately, mountain rescue call outs are on the increase. Some teams are already in the hundreds. My team looks like it's heading for a record year with 70 plus call outs so far this year.
Whoa.
It's happening throughout England and Wales and up in Scotland as well, from speaking to colleagues up there. There's a lot of what we call TikTokers who
just
want to get out there. You know what? You can't call them. They see something, they just want to go out and they want to enjoy it. Just not as prepared as they should be. So there is an organisation called Be Adventure Smart, who Mountain Rescue England and Wales do work with, and they want to support people. Their aims are as they put, to promote safe adventures and sharing knowledge. They help tourism in these areas, a bit innovative, but they just want to get the information to people of what they should be doing.
Well, great. I mean, between that, Be Adventure Smart, and the 5 adventure habits that people have picked up from you today, we're all going to be a little bit more mountain safe, I reckon. And Paul, I just want to thank you for the time that you spent with us today. Really appreciate it. Absolutely, absolutely moved and love your story. I have done since since we first talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and you told me what the genesis of your need to join the mountain rescue. Paul, I just want to say a big thank you to you and all mountain rescue volunteers. It's absolute delight for me to be able to offer our products at discounts to them as well. As you can hear from what Paul said, all of these are really worthy causes. do come onto the website, follow the links, and like and share all of this, because everybody needs to know how to be safer when they're on the mountains and enjoy it without being silly. Okay. Right.
Well, thank you for having me.
Paul, thanks very much for coming here today.